This is your grid order for tonight as we go from the bottom, Jeremy.
Yeah, it's Federico Alberti, shotgun on the field. Then you go back to row 8. Kyle Domark didn't run any laps in practice. We'll see if that'll hamper them or help them, with Conrad Kulo alongside Andrea Pagnini and Caden Richardson alongside each other in row 7. Row 6, Cody Cosford and Alexander Podlick. Now you move on to your top 10. It is a tight battle near the front, but you still have Joop de Vos and Igor Kost alongside each other. Mihai Neg and the Canadian Gregory Hovesen make up row 4. Row 3, Danny Neo and Ryan Woodrow are rounding out that row. Then you go to Balas Erde and David Bozga in row 2. And your front row, Nikolai Peterson and Luciano Whitvet in that row. Take a look at the gap between them two. 0.014 seconds separate those, the Danish and the Dutch driver on the front row. And of course, the top half of that top 10, Alexa, less than 0.3 of a second.
Indeed it is, but even the field, I would say, is pretty tight altogether, because looking at the past, I mentioned him before, it is Alexander Podlick down in P number 11 here, but I'm going to say, that's who I'm going to have my eye on especially, because like Shannon and Jamie did say in the pre-race, there was a race before this season as a bit of a pre-season, and it would be P number 2 for Alexander Podlick. So how are they going to fare starting a little bit lower down the field? I wouldn't be surprised if they start to go on a bit of a charge and start to side through, but you want to keep it nice and clean on lap number 1 as we currently sit on hanger. Of course, like they also said, you're going to be making your way through these final few corners to get down towards the Silverstone wing for your race start and the green flag.
And that doesn't worry me too much. It's going into Village in the Loop is when we see a lot of problems on these rolling starts. So that's going to be interesting to watch that. Of course, Brooklands is also another tight spot here in the open. Couple of laps as the pace car pulls off. We're just about set the field going through the club chicane for the final time at slow speeds. Next time they come down this way and onto the Hamilton Straight, it will be at full speed, and they'll be ending lap 1 of the Crown Racing Series for the first time. Green flag is out, and so far so good. Whitvet gets to an early lead. Nikolai Peterson, though, closing and trying to hold off Bozga as they're side by side for second place. Go, you got to spin. 1, 2, 3, 4 cars are already off, and there's several cars. It's Hovesen and Neo, the first 2 cars off, but Whitvet already watching the battle for second place heat up.
Already having that incident there. Woodrow also there, Angelo Pagani and Cardian Richardson in the background as well. And that flag, but 3 cars all the way through the loop now on to Wellington. It sits like that, as you see on the left side of your screen. Whitlow got an absolutely amazing start there, but is he going to be able to hold it? He's already opened it up to a second in the first few corners. Now it is all to play for. Down in towards Brooklands and Lovefield. Down the inside is Blas Erdley, as that is a lovely move by the driver, and they get themselves up in a P number 2, but now the defensive game comes into play out through Woodcourt and onto the old pit straight.
Well, as you saw there, Bozga and Peterson kind of dancing a little bit, and Erdley decided he was just going to slip right through that open door. Still side by side for third between Bozga and Peterson. Right now, the Ferrari has that advantage. You're back there with 3 wide going into Cops. You don't necessarily want to do that, as we saw a couple of years ago during the British Grand Prix. We've got Neg, Podlick, and Richardson sitting there for the battle for 7th place. Podlick trying to get up to that 7th place, as everybody trying to find some dicing through Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel. And Whitvet, your leader, with Erdley sitting there in 2nd place. What a move that was out of the Ford Mustang.
Indeed it was. You seize the opportunity and you take it. Down the inside is hard to make a mark, but he's now sat P number 2 is the Hungarian, but he's going to have to defend it as he's got the Belgium driver of Bozga right behind him. David looks for the inside line and they will take it wheel to wheel, side by side, now through the Vale chicane, onto the exit and into Club Corner, onto Lewis Hamilton straight, but do not count out Peterson. He's right there with him. A little bit of contact on the exit, but onto Lewis Hamilton, still wheel to wheel, side by side between these drivers. It's going to be Blessing, Erdley is also going to be right there. Peterson also going to have Bozga right there. David is going to go right there with him, wheel to wheel. It's all to play for a square down in towards Village and then the loop. This is racing action which you do not want to miss.
And Bozga had that advantage going into the loop and heading towards Aintree. But this has given Whitvat a chance to open up a 2.5-second lead over his closest competitors going through the Wellington Straight once again. What a fantastic couple of laps we have seen. You've got several batches of races here. The battle for second, then you've got the battle for sixth, which is about a 4 or 5 car back. But this battle for second is absolutely stellar now through Brooklands and into Luffield. Once again, you see one of the few Porsches in the field working their way through. There's Cody Cosford trying to stay in that top 10. Now up to 9th is Caden Richardson in the Mercedes. He'll fall back one spot. They're still side by side. Look at this view. Little bit of rubbing going into Cops. And so far, everybody clean. Obviously, we had Hofson and Neo with that early race incident, but they are on the track, albeit several seconds down. And just, you know, this is not a place you want to make a move going through Maggots and Beckett's. But I'll say this, Richardson really licking his chops.
He's absolutely loving it out there as we look over at the diffuser and towards Kula's car just behind him. Conrad Kula, 4 positions up since this race start, looking to get inside that top 10. There is Nikolai M. Pedersen, who is trying to hold on to this one. He's still got that Ferrari chasing it down in the back. 4 versus Ferrari, it never gets old. Be careful though, because it is realistically an opportunity for any of these drivers. Vale never gives it up, but there is Angelo Pagani, who is going to be losing out for the moment. He has just been overtaken by Woodrow. This is definitely an interesting mix of cars out there tonight, because you never know who is going to be able to make those moves, because every single car is different and it's driver's skill. But now Dan Lewis Hamilton again into Abbey, as this is going to be a replay here. This is Homerson at the start, and this is going down into turn number 1 from the helicopter cam. And that is going to be what happened. Rear end slips out, it seems, and no, in fact, that was from the Honda on the right-hand side of that. So that is really
that was actually
for them.
So yeah, that was a Corvette of Ryan Woodrow. Just lost it going into Abbey, which you don't normally see, but Woodrow just having problems on that first lap coming around the loop, able to get through there. And yeah, that's what we saw early on. Once again, here's a shot from Woodrow. As you see on board, tries to go for a pass on the inside. Just hit back end, step it out on Woodrow. And that's something that we have seen out of the Corvettes early on in the race, especially when the tires aren't that warm. But something I was going to mention, Alexa, when I was doing my notes, I found it interesting. So some of these GT3 series, you see more and more Aston Martins. We have no Aston Martins in the field. It's a mix of heavy Ford Mustang and Ferrari, with just 1 Corvette, 1 Mercedes, and 2 Porsches in the field as well, with as you're on board with Andrea Pagnini, one of the drivers who is a Porsche driver this series.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with the Porsche, which I find, though. It is very good at turning in these corners, and from the calendar, which drivers know, it may be that that's just the optimal car to go with, as right up the rear end of the car is going to be Woodrow. They are hounding and looking for the move once again as they head out through Stowe Corner and down towards the Vale Chicane one more time. P number 12 chasing P number 11, and that is now very close to the rear end. They're keeping pace with each other, which is what you love to see. It's always great to see close racing action like we are seeing, but now it seems on the exit, Kula is getting the advantage there. So Conrad Kula may be having a little bit of a setup difference to Ryan Woodrow, and maybe optimizing for corners compared to straight line speed.
Well, it is a fix-up, as you remember, too. I do appreciate the Dollywood paint scheme, though. I will say that. But as you remember, that Ferrari is a lot better on top-end speed, which is no surprise there. Yeah, so Kula doing his best to keep Woodrow behind. Woodrow is going to have to really hone down, especially through Brooklands, Luffield, and Woodcott, as once again, that's a nice look, and as Woodrow likes to do, likes to prove me wrong and actually stay on the back end of that prancing horse through Luffield into Woodcott. Looks like somebody went off a little bit there as we see some gravel on the outside of the circuit. Hey, Nikolai Peterson, your second place driver, trying to close in on your leader, Whitvet, 2.3 seconds, 57.722, the fastest lap. You take a look out of the front of that Ford Mustang, you see a lot of land, you barely see with Vet, but also have this battle for position between Hofson and Kyle Domark. As mentioned, Kyle comes from a racing family, and I've got to say this, I think I know why Kyle missed practice. This area got about a foot of snow, so he was probably out there trying to dig himself out and get ready for this race, but nonetheless, he's still showing some decent times as he's running the same time as the leader. Here's Cody Cosford trying to hold off Podlick, the German, in heading through the back part of the circuit.
Yeah, and they're both in the same car, both in fixed setup, so now looks to the outside line down into Vale. That will give the inside on the exit, but either way, it's still a stellar defence by the Scotsman, and now Paulick is going to be right on the rear end. Alexander Paulick round onto Lewis Hamilton straight. And I do want us to talk about this real quick as we are 8 minutes in, so compared to the race starts, the top 4 are all yet to make up any positions. They are where they started. It's 4 positions gained for Igor Kos and Yupa Der Vos, with 1 position gained for Mahani Neg, 4 positions for Cody Cosford, 2 positions for Alexander Paulick, 3 positions for Cadden Richardson. Konrad Kula gets 4 positions as well. 7 positions down since the race start is Ryan Rudrow, with 1 position gained for Andale Pagani, 3 positions gained for Frederick Alberti, 8 positions down for Gregory Holverson, and still where they started for Kyle Domark, with Danny Neo 11 positions down since that race start. So of course Gregory Holverson and Danny Neo had that incident earlier on, and that has really hindered their race so far, but we'll wait and see what can happen because we're only 8 minutes in and this is a 50-minute race after all.
You saw Alexander close in on Cody Cosford there as they're working their way through Luffield. And really, you take a look at the stats. You've got Pollock, who is a recent class winner at the 24 Hours of Nürburgring race. Hofson, I was watching his progress. He's really coming up through the field. He's already gained 2 spots since that off, so I think Hofson probably has a lot to play for here. He's down 7 from that early race incident that we saw the replay from, as Alberti trying to hold on to the back of that Mustang. But I've got to say, Federico's going to have a lot to work for here. You also have this battle, go back to this battle with Richardson, Kula, Woodrow, as Ryan Woodrow goes around the inside there through Cops, still able to make it happen. I should say that's not Cops, pardon me, that's Stowe, but Kula really closing in through the chicane, and that is going to be interesting to see if that top end speed of that Ferrari, like we mentioned, as Caden Richardson is into the pits.
Yeah, interesting opportunity there for him, maybe opting for an early stop just to take an advantage, maybe get out the traffic a little bit, what we are seeing now. So that's going to be coming into effect later on as they're going to be opening up, getting a bit of clean air out there at Silverstone. So we will keep an eye on them. But looking at the rest of this field, you did mention fastest lap out there, 1:57.692 for Ergal. But now, with the Fords out there as well, there's a lot of them, and Ferraris. I'm looking at this battle right now because there is Danny Neo in the Ford Mustang themselves versus Kyle Domark. It's wheel to wheel, side by side. They've got the Ferrari leading just in front of them, but it's wheel to wheel onto Wellington. Hopping into the rear toe is going to be Kyle Domark though. Maybe down into Brooklands and Luffield, but it's never over until it's over. He's opened up the gap a bit as Danny Neo. He's now coming onto the back of Federico Alberti, looking through Luffield and then through to Woodcote. Really on the inside here. Throttle is going to be an advantage here. Also, Ford Mustang, quite a bit known for its straight line speed. Will it get it here into the toe as they head down the old pit straight? Moves to the right hand side, looking on the inside towards Cop's corner. Onto the inside, and it's going to be contact between the two from that angle. Alberti goes round, but able to catch it. They go onto the tarmac on the exit of Cops.
Cops is such a high-risk corner to make some sort of pass happen. As we take a look at the replay here, we see Neo just all over the back of Alberti, and Federico just not sure what in the axis of danger right there. Just gets that bump, and Neo, that's got to be interesting. Something to watch out for. A lot of these drivers are already copying some penalty points. We both know that it's sometimes a very narrow window. It is 20 incident points where you will get your first black flag, and according to the rules here, there's no expectation that race control will clear black flags, so really got to mind your P's and Q's, especially in this first race. And something else we forgot to mention, if you are watching the bonus points, Alexa, it's 3 bonus points for fastest lap, with 32 points going to the winner. So you could get 35 points to start off the season if you win and get the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine the momentum boost and maybe even just the confidence boost as well, getting all those points, thinking about, I've got so many, I can carry this on, I can do this at the rest of the season, and it can really help you out in that mindset. So many points on the line. Is the higher that you get, it really is an interesting factor here at the Crown Racing Series as you go once again through Brooklands and Midfield. Still on the back of Cody Cosford is Ryan Woodrow, Alexander Paulik and Conrad Kula. Also going to have Andrei Pagani on the back of this. So even though it may not look like it apart from this camera angle, it is really nose to tail in this fight, with Cosford in ahead with 4 astern. On the exit of Cops Corner, that's going to be advantage on the exit. It's going to be Ryan Woodrow round the outside, and yeah, he is going to get that done. Maggots just before Beckett's actually.
I was going to say, Woodrow with a nice little run there coming out of Cops and sets up through Maggots. And that was an interesting place to pass as they go down the hangar straight once again. So at the head of this 8th place train, it's Woodrow. And now Cosford and Paulik going to look to the inside. Not going to make anything happen, though. Oh, man, I thought Cosford was going to take some sort of look there as we're looking out of the front of Paulik, the German, running the Ferrari. And out the, gotta say this, Cosford with a defensive line, but he's going to have a tougher line going through Club.
Indeed he is, but now you've also got this one happening behind Conrad Kula on the back of Paulik. It's going to be advantage to this driver. Looks to the right hand side, does the Polish man, but now going into turn number 1 of Abbey, it's got to back out a little bit, maybe not taking the optimal line, being a bit cautious and waiting for a straight. You could see that a few times by these drivers. It is always safer to pass on a straight, but a corner is always an advantage. As down the inside is going to go Paulik on Cosford. That was a bit out of nowhere, but it's a little bit of wheel banging, but they're still going to go at it on the inside now onto the exit, onto Wellington. They're still side by side. We get a perfect view on board with Kula. This is on board with Cody Cosford. He's on the right hand side, Paulik on the left hand side, down into Brooklands. Contact between the two again. A little bit of door banging, and I think that is Cosford. Yes, it is. Off the circuit, has to rejoin. Now he's up against Kula.
The Scottish driver trying to hold on to the top 10 right now is Kula, who's been cool as a cucumber. Has Pagnini behind him as well. So got a whole bunch of Ferraris with a Porsche wanting to get into the mix. Here's the replay of that incident. That was just an interesting overtake. So a little bit of a scrape there as Paulik sacrifices the village and goes through the loop side by side. That's when we start to see the beating and banging headed down through Aintree and Wellington straight. It's I mean, you know, here's the thing. You get a good run into Wellington, and it sets you up. And let's see the incident that kind of led to the end of that battle. I would call that racing incident because they were both rubbing elbows and kind of running each other ragged there.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree. I think that's just some hard racing there, trying to keep your position. Maybe a little bit too early turning, but either way, they're still on the circuit and they are still racing, so didn't affect them too much, just losing out the position did Cosford. But now, this is the man who is up top by an absolute margin of Luciano Witwowicz, so they are flying as there is Sorry, I apologise for my bad pronunciation. Luciano Pedersen. I apologise for my bad pronunciation. Still getting used to all these driver names. As the Danish driver is currently sat P number 2, and that gap has been staying pretty consistent from what I've seen. But keep in mind, you were mentioning the 3 extra points, Jeremy. This man currently has them with a 1 minute 57.601 being the fastest lap of the race so far.
And it's okay, Alexa. English is tough. Trust me, for somebody who speaks for a living, I totally understand. But here's the thing with Peterson. He's trying to hold off Bozga, who's been all over the back of Peterson the whole time. But also, you got to stop and think here. Bozga is the meat in this Ford Mustang sandwich, as you Balzas Erdely sitting right there in 4th place. Your top 4 really haven't moved too much. And that's the view out of Luciano Witwowicz, the driver out of the Netherlands. Take a look at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. You see that gap. It shrank a little bit after lap 6, but since then, it's really grown. So really, at this point, Whitfett has put his head to the grindstone and has been able to open up that gap. Well, he hasn't gotten fast lap after fast lap. He's still running a tenth of a second faster than everybody else behind him, mainly because he's not having to defend. He's only worrying about what's ahead of him. You take a look at that little viewfinder back there, which points out what's behind him, and he's not seeing anything. So why not just get out there and just run your best laps?
Yeah, I think anybody who does some racing also knows that clean air is always your best friend, and you want to use it. As this is further back, currently on board with Gregory Hofsson, as they have got, of course, man behind in the Spaniard who is chasing them down, trying to defend it. Of course, Danny Neo currently fighting this field, continuously going down as the sky is orange here tonight at Silverstone. Either way, that is another thing I want to think about here, actually. That sky, it is orange. Could there be a slight bit of sun glare? Although down the inside goes Danny Neo, down into Village, wheel to wheel between the two drivers. It's going to be Hofsson on the inside, Canadian versus Spaniard, but now it is once again Gregory Hofsson who is able to hold on to it from the Great White North here at Silverstone.
Well, a couple things I want to point out with Hofsson. Gregory and Danny both run with each other at Ivy areas. Neo goes deep into the inside through Brooklands. They're side by side. Look at this. This is how you get through there without making any sort of pass, not even touching. Take a look at the damage there on Gregory's Mustang. It's a little bit of a wiggle coming out of left field, setting up for Woodcott, and now they're both taking a defensive line. Let's hang on board with this. Oh, you can see the whites of Neo's eyes as he looks to the outside of Cops. Gonna go just a little bit deeper. They're side by side, and Neo is gonna lose any chance that he had as he compromised the exit going through Cops. But the reason why these two drivers are so good together, they've raced with each other in IVRA, and as you know, IVRA, that is such a contentious championship for GT3s, as Pollock is going to try to get to the inside of Cosford right there for position. Looks like Kula and Pagnini really closing in as well, going through the back part of the circuit. But yeah, if you race with somebody enough up and down the schedule, you're gonna know their quirks, you're gonna know how they race, and that's what makes the series like this so much fun.
Is down the inside. Oh, and that's going to be rear end slipping out, it seems, and that's going to be contact into Paulik, who does now get it past. But that seemed like the rear end slipped out, unless it was a tap on the rear end that we missed. But that happened to Kula on the exit through Club. That is not what you want, and that's going to drop him all the way down to P15. This is the replay from the helicopter cam, and in fact, onto the inside, and rear end just goes on him, and does get corrected the right way, but unfortunately, the car has other ideas.
Federico Alberti into the pits, but I would say that's the case of the back end. Wanted to see what the front end's looking like, but Alexa, I've got to say that looks like it was just way too fast through Club and down the Hamilton straight. And that's exactly what happened. Is Kula, look at that steering wheel. It's all the way positioned to the right. So this might be a race ender for the Polish drivers. Conrad is trying to tiptoe his way around the circuit.
Yeah, I think that'll be rear suspension damage, possibly. Just trying to keep the car in its current position, because you did see the tap on the car, so that's probably where the damage has been picked up. But there is Lucanio Whitvoet, and there is Nikolai and Pedersen, as they are still in this. The gap has not really changed that much. It does fluctuate between 2.5 and 2.8, it seems, around the lap time, but either way, it's still a nice fight in this, because you've got Pedersen, who's right there, but you've also got Bosger, and you've got Erdely, who is in that, as Erdely's going to get that move. As you're also watching Paulik and Pagania, as they are currently fighting, as they continue out of Stowe now, down in towards the Vale chicane. P number 10 in this fight in the current moment, trying to make their way through and hold on to this line. There is Gregory Hofsson, who is in the fight with Danny Neo, as they are once again nose to tail through this back through this final section of the Silverstone circuit and onto the Lewis Hamilton straight past the Silverstone wing. It is always a great view there, especially when these drivers are fighting so close together, as that is actually going to be into the pit lane like we guessed. It is Conrad Cooler into the pit lane here at Silverstone.
Alberti out of the pits, 19.4 seconds. So Caden Richardson right now, your front runners are those who have pitted. Quick tip of the cap to Hovsen, as he has gained several positions since his little incident that he had. You're watching Federico Alberti as both Alberti and Richardson will be able to get around Kula. So Richardson now jumps ahead of Kula, and Kula will be less in the field as the car is on the jacks. Drops down. Let's see if this is going to be a quick repair or if Kula is definitely going to be stuck in the pits for a while watching the pit stop time. And yeah, the higher it's going, I think that's going to be a race over for the Polish driver in the Ferraris. He now drops down to 17th with Federico Alberti, as you see right there, going through Abbey, goes up one position. Lots of great battles throughout the field. We've been watching the leader. There's Whitfett, and of course you look back, Pedersen with about the biggest lead that he's had for second place. So while the battle for the lead's going to be a little bit tough, this battle for the podium position between Erdely and Bosca, that's really going to heat up. It's going to be Ford over Ferrari. You're watching out of the front of Bosca in the Ferrari, as he's got to try and chase down these Mustangs. And it seems like when it comes to this fixed racing setup, as we mentioned, the Mustang isn't a good all-around racer, but the Ferrari, if you could get into that, that's probably the second best one right there.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I could not disagree with that. But this is, once again, Danny Neo on the back, as Cosford seemed to drop down the order, but now he's back into his position, as that was just a little blip as they continue now in this one as well. The Spaniard still chasing down the Canadian. It currently sits, as we go on to 25 minutes, so nearly at the halfway point. It is Whitthewit, it is Lucanio Whitthewit who leads this, as right on the outside looking to get up another position is Danny Neo. He's going to try it this time round, but having to slot into the rear end, into the loop, through to Aintree, onto Wellington. It is incredibly close between these two drivers, but the podium up top is going to be Lucanio Whitthewit, Nikolai Pedersen and Balzas Erdely.
I've got to say, that little switchback into the loop between those two kind of hurt Neo just a little bit, but we're watching the leader. And now, I mean, you're at the point where you are seeing Pedersen 3 seconds behind. He's still within, you kind of see him in the background there, but Whitfett not putting a toe out of line, and that's what it's going to take to win this race. As you say, that just wiggles and drops a wheel out of place, but you really got to be fine-tuned here to win this championship. You've got a lot of very fast, very good racers all up and down the grid, and the times you see on the left-hand side of your screen, it's not really indicative because they're winners in their own right in several different series. You take a look at Luciano, and as you heard, his dad was a Seat Cup team mechanic. You look at the Seat Cup, and it is an absolutely fantastic series. You see great racing left and right. So if anyone knows how to get around a racetrack this good, it's going to be Luciano.
Yeah, and I mean, if you also take into account he only entered the sim racing scene in 2020, and he's already going around these circuits like this, it shows the skill that is truly behind that wheel. As into the pit lane is going to come Alexander Paulik, as well as the driver just in front, which is going to be Mihai Neg. So, going to start seeing most of these drivers come into the pit lane now that we are at the halfway point. So, I'm going to ask you this, Jeremy. What are we thinking about pit strategy? Because it may be a fixed setup, but each one is to their own, how they like to drive their car and how they like to go about a race.
Ooh, if I'm up at the front, I'm waiting till the last possible minute to go out and pit. Obviously, we're just past halfway in this race as Paulik and Neg both come out, and Neg still ahead of Paulik. And now Richardson gets out in front of the Ferrari. So you see Caden Richardson. Let's see what happens here if Richardson can stay in front of the two cars. The pit and a little bit of a spin there as Richardson gets tagged by Neg. The race is a foot through the loop, and Neg with the colder tires able to get out there and get ahead of Richardson. By the way, Relive, fastest lap of the race, 57.587. The drag race is on down the Wellington Straight now through Brooklands, and Richardson goes high, wide, and handsome, but not able to hold off that Mustang. I've got to say this, that Mustang is just too good, too fast. Little tap of the brakes by Neg to try not to lose it, but back underway. That was a heck of a race, and the leaders all prove me wrong. Your 4 out of your top 5 have all pitted, including your race leader, Luciano Whitfett. That's going to give Bozga a chance to get out front.
Yeah, he was behind in that fight about number 3 position, so now he's going to get that clean air that Whitverwick got, and he's going to be absolutely flying around this circuit, I would say. We'll wait and see, though, how it will fare, because we just saw what happened with the pit stop with Neg and Richardson. Is that going to happen again? Could we see the people who pit a little bit later coming into the moments? But either way, it is going to be an interesting one. But the top 3 is Bozga, Woodrow, and Paganini, who is all yet to pit. So this is definitely going to become an interesting factor towards the end of this. But those top drivers all into the pits. But Lucanio, with what pit stop from him? Everybody's seemingly getting these pit stops nice and smooth.
I thought I heard on my comms no tires, so somebody deciding that they're just going to fill up and use race old tires. Let's see how that. Okay, so we did hear everybody took tires. Okay, but yeah, I gotta say, take a look at the pit stops. It does look like everybody did take tires. So yeah, Bozga, Woodrow, and Pagnini still have yet to pit. But you take a look at the gap. It was that we saw earlier how Whitford had a 3-second lead. Well, that's been cut in half now because Peterson, his pit stop, a half-second faster than your aggregate late race leader, Luciano Whitford. So let's see if that works out for Peterson. That's your Whitford and Pedersen, your top 2 from the pit stops. You're looking out of the back of Mihai Neg as he's got Caden Richardson still on the back, and Bozga is going to answer the call. He's going to come into the pits. Does Woodrow do the same? We'll find out in about 10 seconds time.
Indeed we will. We're also going to find out how they will now come out compared to the rest of the field. It's going to be an interesting factor. The Belgian driver and the American into the pits now. So how are their times going to be at the end of this? And also going to have Andrei Pagani, who is going to be into the pit lane as well. So the top 3 who didn't pit all will opt in to do so now as we approach that 30-minute mark. Just over 20 minutes remaining in this race. Here is David Bozga into his pit box, and that is nice and smooth on the throttle and on the brake, nice and clean. It's definitely an interesting one now. I'm looking at these gaps as it is coming onto the main straight now of Lucanio Whitworth, as there is the Netherlands driver who is coming across and past the Silverstone wing. He has got that nice and tidy, it seems. But Bozga is off the blocks and he is on the roll. Where will he come out in the end of this? I think we just saw a flash of that Ferrari on the bottom of the screen. I believe, yes he has, it's going to be incredibly close between the two, but Lucanio Whitworth is right on the rear and he's going to get the move done on the timing board. But now, this is the live scene, the wheel to wheel, side by side through the loop onto Wellington.
Yeah, but Bozga now has much fresher tires as Whitford has the 1-lap old tires. But I'll tell you what, Whitford so far has been too good, too fast. Let's see if Bozga has anything for him as that gap opens up just a little bit. But you take a look at the gap between Whitford and Pedersen, it's 1.6, 1.7 seconds. So yeah, that half second, that ate up half the time that the two had. You take a look at the replay here of this earlier pass, and Whitford goes to high, wide, and handsome through Village and sets up perfectly through the loop, and that's where the pass for the lead happened. That Premier Motorsports Ferrari just able to get through and use that inside advantage to get around Bozga. Now Bozga has losing time left and right, 0.6 of a second, so now he has to worry about that Ford Mustang, which will easily close in on him here in the next couple of laps. But Bozga's been quite surprised surprise. We saw him up at the front, obviously, from the pit stop, but still 15.6 seconds. That short pit stop, that might be the story of the race, because with less than 20 minutes to go, if he can hold on, he might be set up for a prime podium position.
Indeed, he might, and I wouldn't count him out either, because even though Whitver is leading this, it is this man who we're on board with, David Bosca, who does have the experience with 6+ years in motorsports and sim racing, and he's competed in the top tier teams, including Williams Esports, MSI, and Simufi, and now Grid and Go. So this man has the experience. He's going to be putting it right under the wheel. So I would say if Whitver has a chance to prove it, well, he's already proved with his experience, but this man is even more. So I'm sure a battle between these two is not going to be one we want to miss, as this is going to be on the replay in the pit exit of David Bosca. So this is where the experience will show coming out of the pits, and it's going to be interesting. It comes over the crest, and where is Whitver? You will wait and see him for a moment. There he is, incredibly close on the rear end. Has to move to the left-hand side of the track, right side of the screen, and this is wheel-to-wheel, side-by-side once again, opting for a bit of a wider line to give this space. This is racing at its absolute finest, and that is just a clean move by Whitver for that lead back.
Well, of course, Bosca is also the 2023 Belgium iRacing champion, so he already has a ton of experience behind the wheels, you mentioned, and no surprise here that he's able to hold on to the position. Here's Joop de Vos sitting in 6th place, up 4 from his grid position, trying to hold off Ryan Woodrow. In spite of him being 2 off, that early for lap 1 incident kind of messed with him, flashing the lights, trying to get inside de Vos's head, but Woodrow actually looking pretty good here in this Corvette, working through Maggots and Beckett's, and this race is kind of turned on its head a little bit with the strategy. I kind of like the fact that Bosca came in and did the short pit, and de Vos and Woodrow just trying to get in, stay in that top 10, as Woodrow reeling him in, heading into Stowe. And Stowe, you really got to keep up your speed, but the center weight of this Porsche here, that's really helping out de Vos.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It allows for more of a bit of a plant on the circuit, I would say. Personally not a Porsche driver myself, but I know from people who do, especially the man just in front, it is real. It shows that it can be a car in the hands, and it can be an absolutely amazing one. Rudrovo still on the rear end in his Corvette, continuously trying to get past it. Really is an interesting factor when two of these types of cars go side by side. Of course, you've got more experience than myself, Jeremy, in these kind of series, but talk us through it. What do you expect in a difference between a Porsche and a Corvette as they go wheel to wheel, side by side, especially in a 50-minute race like this?
Well, I've been lucky enough to work these series that have these certain regulations to where you can't mess with anything. So they really do very well on trying to, for the parity, basically, as we see Woodrow trying to go just a little bit wide, coming off the Wellington straight through Brooklands now into Luffield. But it's no surprise to see these two cars run with each other neck and neck. It doesn't matter what series I'm racing at, whether it's a Trans Am or a GT3 series like this, the parity is just so tight with these series that, you know, yeah, one may be faster in the straights, but the other's going to catch up with you in the corners. But Woodrow, I don't know, the past couple of laps I've seen him run through cops, and he's had a fantastic exit. So I'm not sure if there's something that he's trying there that really makes him nice and tidy, because once he gets through Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel, he's just all over the back. He's too far away to make anything happen through the Hanger Straight, but he could set something up through the Hamilton Straight as his battle for 6th place really heats up. Igor Kos a little bit further back, but still, let's see if a move is made here. No, Woodrow thinks better of it. The Corvette driver, of course, has high-level finishes all up and down, whether it is the Logitech McLaren G Series or SRO Esports. So he knows how to race, and he's very good at racing here. And of course, he's also a Nürburgring 24-hour class winner starting in 2024 as he works his way around down the Hamilton straight. Does he make the move here? I think he's going to set up for Village. Let's stay on board with Woodrow as he closes in. That scrub off of speed may have hurt him a little bit going through into the farm curve, but yeah, too far away to make something happen. That might be his downfall, but he is closing in. Does he see the opening? No. DeVos shuts the front door on him through the loop, and now able to get back on that gas just a little bit better.
Indeed it is. I mean, looking back on the result which we saw when these drivers did a bit of pre-season, these two are exactly where they were last time, just one position down. So last time it was DeVos over Woodrow. So is it going to happen again, or will it be a bit of redemption trying to make up for that and get another move past? Either way, it is down to the wire, I would say, as we are just under 15 minutes remaining in this one. Also, I think you saw it as well, Jeremy. We have got that sun glare coming over the horizon as you head through the first few corners. So surely that's going to be a factor on Hanger.
Oh, it's going to be a problem on Hanger. It's really going to be a problem on Cops, because that is, like I said, that's where we saw Ryan really make that pass through there. Now we go through Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel. So we'll see if that has anything to do. See if DeVos has to do a heavy defense going into the first sector or not. Woodrow still about a couple car lengths behind DeVos. So it is, you're on board with the Corvette. You got the Porsche up ahead. Then if Woodrow gets a chance, he'll go try and catch up to Cos. But everybody running about the same time. Here's what I love about these GT3 cars. You can run a tenth of a second faster than somebody and still not be able to pass them just because you catch them at the wrong place. So that's something to watch out for, as Whitvet just cannot shake off Buzga for the lead. We've seen gaps as high as 5 seconds. Now it's down to the tenth of a second. And oh, by the way, there's some lap traffic up ahead as well.
Lap traffic is always going to be a big factor no matter what racing it is. So in these final 10 minutes coming up, it's definitely going to be an interesting one. We'll see how that will affect it. As we head now through Brooklands into Lutfield, and the lap driver is P number 17 of Konrad Kula, but this is a little bit further back. This is Alexander Paulik, and of course Richardson. Richardson's on the inside, and he is going to go on the inside once again, going to hold the line. The Merc is going to get the advantage though on the speed, and he will be able to carry that through. What a move. And that's lovely. But now looking for the inside line is Alexander Paulik, and it is lovely and jubbly. It's now wheel to wheel between the two drivers around the outside. This time towards Woodcut you go, possibly an up and under by the Ferrari. Is it going to be the toe? The toe is always a good benefit to have, especially down this straight down towards Cop's Corner. But it seems like as we watch this battle, it is going to be Cadin Richardson who is defending with all his might. He got that lovely move through the loop, and now he's put the defense on and he's put the brakes on Paulik.
Well, it doesn't help that Paulik had about a half car length width up on Cops, and that's never going to help if you're going to try and defend somebody. Also, Caden, he knows how to get around with draft and all that, as he is the defending Radical SR10 Pro Champion in the Midwest Road Racing Series. Gregory Hovson, gotta say, he fell down to 14th, but he and Neo have been neck and neck since they both got out of the pits, working their way around the back part of the circuit. Man, that is absolutely high commitment going through Vale and into the club chicane. There's a spin. Neo with the spin. Hovson shortcuts the course, and Neo able to come around. Not sure if there was contact or whatnot, but Danny Neo slowing, heading down into the Hamilton straight.
What? And that is really unfortunate for them. Are we hearing?
Well, we're hearing that they both. Yeah, I think they both have a drive-through, so they both have hit that 20 incident point, so they will have to come in within the next 3 laps. About less than 10 minutes left to go, and Hovson, who's tried to make a great climb up the field, and Neo will both have to answer the black flag. We're back to this battle. Actually, let's go to the replay and see what happened here. Alex, I'm going to step back and let you kind of decipher this, because that was interesting to see.
Yeah, that's a turn in too early. Danny Neo goes round, and Gregory Hovson came across, and that is what caused that spin. So turning in a bit too early, maybe not expecting the car to be that slow in that segment of the corner, and that is what happened. That is what sent them both round, and I believe that is what both got them the drive-through. So possibly incident limit rather than track limits being built up too much, and that is going to affect them majorly now in these final minutes. Who's going to be able to pick up those points? We'll watch that timing tower to keep you updated, as Alexander Paulik right now is looking at the rear end of Neg. But this is all across the board. Whitver, though, I'm going to give him his props. He's been leading this for an absolute age, and he's been showing why. He did it in the pre-season, and he's doing it again. But Bosga still within that 1 second, so never say never. With 7 minutes and 45 seconds left on the clock, anything can happen towards the end of this. Getting past the lap traffic, it seems. That's cooler. Who you see in the background, that white Ferrari. So that is the moves done to get past, and into the pit lane comes Danny Neo to serve that drive-through penalty. That is unfortunate for them, as there is the sun, and it is shining over Silverstone to kick off this new season here in the Crown Racing Series. And it is a show altogether, but also these drivers are getting so much experience. You never have too much, and as they come onto the old pit straight, out through Woodcut now, down towards Copse Corner, you get this beautiful helicopter cam. But Luciano Vitvoet, as we've already talked about him quite a bit, but we'll remind you that it is a bit of a sad story that he did lose his father. So the fact that he's able to keep on doing sim racing in this style and win so much, I'm sure that everybody will be happy about that.
But I wouldn't get David Bosga out yet. He's been within a second the whole time. Now, if you remember that first stint, Whitvet opened up that 3-second gap over Pedersen, and really, that's going to be interesting to watch as we see Ryan Woodrow knocking at the door of DeVos once again through Maggots into Beckett's right now as they work through. And tell you what, DeVos, he's just so good through these corners, but Woodrow able to keep him honest in his Corvette down into the hangar straight. Let's see who gets on the brakes just a little bit later, and it looks like it's going to be Woodrow. He's closed up that gap once again, able to get on the loud pedal just a little bit quicker. But both of these drivers has been going tooth and nail since the pit stop. So with about more than 5 minutes left to go, this race is going to go down to the wire with these two drivers. Actually the closest battle of the race, and it is for 6th place down the Hamilton straight. Once again, it's still Joop de Vos and Ryan Woodrow. Of course, Joop de Vos really, here's what's interesting, as Hobson comes in for his drive-through penalty, but Joop de Vos actually was part of a pro cycling team as well, so that kind of makes me smile a little bit. As Whitvet, once again, you see him out near the front, and Bosga doing all he can to stay within that slipstream. But as we said, Whitvet too good, too fast.
Yeah, off of 2 wheels and onto 4, but either way, the skill hasn't disappeared. In fact, it seems like it's grown for Joop de Vos. But you were talking about this one, Bosga is still on the back of this. Whitverwit is the Dutchman who is currently leading this. Bosga P number 2, Pedersen P number 3, Erdely sits P number 4 with Cos P5, De Vos P number 6 with Woodrow P number 7, P number 8 for Cosford, followed by Picani P9, and Richardson rounds out your top 10. So Neg, Paulik, Domark, Hobson, Neo and Alberti in P number 16, and then of course you've got Kula, who is unfortunately 2 laps down due to damage earlier on in this race. But it's great to see that they have kept going. But there is Joop de Vos, like I said, off 2 wheels, onto 4, and he is doing this defending lap like he's been doing it his entire life. Honestly, I would not say I'm surprised, as of course he is shaped by family legacy, and he is also mentored by his racing father.
Of course, it also reminds you of another famous cyclist from your neck of the woods who also went to 4 wheels, Sir Chris Hoy. So no surprise here that running in a velo or a velodrome really translates into, well, what? Woodrow. Woodrow would also possibly slow down penalty for the American, as now that battle has been lost for sixth place as Woodrow falls 1.1 seconds. Let's take a look at the lap time, 59.9. Yeah, so slow down penalty for Woodrow costs him that battle for possession. Let's see if he can wrangle himself up. You've got Cosford, Pagnini, and Richardson battle also there. So it's Ferrari, Porsche, and Mercedes sitting there, line of stern heading into Abbey. And Pagnini's had a quiet race so far, sitting there in ninth. In spite, you want to win, but at the same time, you kind of want to make a statement. And I think that Pagnini's really made a statement being one of the two Porsches, almost going for a dive there on the Scotsman into the loop, as now everybody working their way down into Wellington Straight. But Alex, I've got to say, not a bad showing out of the Italian.
Yeah, not bad at all. I mean, if we look at him, he's 5 positions up since his race start. So either way, he's had a good race nonetheless. It's always a good race when you're gaining positions. And he's currently inside that top 10 with the Merc all over the rear end of his Porsche, but he's putting the defence on like there's no tomorrow. You see the gap from the leader there as you look over the front bumper as you go on board with Cerdin Richardson, who is now going to go on the inside. I'm going to get a pass on Pagnini, and that is a lovely one at the end of the day. That is into Cops down the inside. That is how you do an overtake there. But we've seen it also. I think that's one of the few times we've actually seen an inside overtake there, because majority of drivers have opted for the outside line there tonight.
They really have, and that was a great move by Richardson, but Pagnini tried to go for the defense going into bag. It's not going to happen, as now Pagnini has Neg and Pollock all on his back door, and something I have not mentioned all race long. I've been watching it, but I love how well that Castrol paint scheme on Pollock's goes so well on the Ferrari. Of course, as you remember, that was on the Toyota back in the 90s. As Cosford has a defensive line contact between Richardson and Pagnini going into there. Wonder if Pagnini just didn't realize how quick that slowdown was, as now you see Neg try to go around the inside. He's going to. It's going to be 1-2 positions. So could there be some sort of damage or spin? As Neg goes for a spin, was it contact with Pollock? It's all come undone here in the past couple of corners, as now Neg has to shortcut the course to come back on, but Pollock now has a problem himself. A little bit too slow going through Village and into the loop, as he wiggles, I should say, too fast. Here comes a battle down the Wellington Straight, as Pollock has to hold off Pagnini once again. I'll tell you what, it went from bad to worse to maybe I'll get it done here, as Pagnini still has a chance to go up through the field. And I'm not sure if this is the last lap or not, but we are in the closing stages of this race. It's amazing how fast this race has gone, as Richardson has gone up around Neg so far for position, but we are watching Pollock and Pagnini, and Neg goes off course once again. So Neg has some problems. The Romanian working his way around the circuit through Luffield and Woodcott right now, as we take a look and see where our leaders are in comparison, as they are, it's going to be a race to the finish. I don't know if they'll make it to the end of the race, and yeah, they will. So this will be the last lap as they come across the line now. Wow, only about 6 seconds later, and they would have made it, but it's going to be smooth sailing for Whitvet so far, unless he drops the wheel off. He's already gained a second on second place David Boska, and then battle for third between Pedersen and Erdelai still looking pretty good. It's been an interesting battle, to say the least, not necessarily up front, but right here. It's been centered around Pollock as he closes in once again on Cosford. Pagnini trying to see if he can capitalize on a little bit of a mistake that he did, but Neg is going into the pits. It's good, as he got a copped a penalty as well for incident points. So Neg will have to end this race with a pass-through. As you see Danny Neo, talk about somebody who it could have been, should have been for him, as Joop de Vos once again has to hold off Ryan Woodrow. Let's see if Woodrow makes a move into Brooklands. Too far away to make anything happen. De Vos, he's looking like a boss so far, trying to hold off the American as they work their way down onto Luffield and into Woodcott. Once again, Whitvet so far away that we are on the final lap of this race. You're looking at the back of DeVos in his Porsche. You see the closing in that Woodrow does, and he still can't make anything happen, but a little bit of a wiggle heading into Cops makes life just a little bit difficult for the American as they set up for Maggots and Beckett's for the final time. But Whitvet, talk about a fantastic race. He led every lap at the one that he was into the pits, works his way through into Vale, now through Club, and it's smooth sailing for the Dutch driver. He dominated the pre-race, and now he's going to dominate race number 1 and put his name into the history books and be the first winner of the Crown Racing Series. Second goes to David Bozka, and third will go to Nikolai Pedersen.
Also going to have rest of the field. Fastest lap will go to P number 3 of Balza Zergelai. But now this is Joop de Vos, and of course behind Ryan Woodrow. Could anything happen in these final few corners? Doesn't seem like it after that touch of a sausage curb on the inside of Club. It's de Vos, P number 6, with P7 going to Woodrow. There's Cosford, but Paulick's going to go for the move down in towards the braking zone. Paulick's going to get this move on the final lap, and he is going to be there for him. So Cosford losing out that position to the German. Is he out of fuel? Because he is majorly slowing down. He is come unravelled at the end for Cosford. He's going to have to finish P number 7, Paulie P8, Pagini P9, Richardson P number 10, Domar comes on P12, and then you've got the rest of the grid to come through. That is not the end that Cosford would have wanted as Danny Neal comes to the line now. Then we've got Neg and Alberti yet to come to the line.
I think what saved Cosford there was the fact that the finish line is right there, coming off of Club and onto the Hamilton straight, or else he would have lost 11th place as well. But Alexa, I've got to say this. I went into this race knowing that it was going to be an interesting race. Nonetheless, this was fantastic throughout the field.
Oh, tell me about it. I mean, I think we saw at the start though it started to get away, but Bosger, after those pit stops, it really shaked it up. He got up in a P number 2 there, one position up since his race start. Bowles, Erdely, and Lucanio Whitverwit, the only drivers actually not to change positions throughout this race. David Bosger and Nikolai N. Pedersen would actually switch positions, so one up, one down at the end of that. And like I said, Balza Ergelai picked up the fastest lap of this race of those extra 3 points. 1 minute 57.587 goes to them at the end of it. As you see, Igor Kos currently on the side of the circuit. That Ford Mustang always looks good, but I was especially entertained with that midfield tonight because, my God, if you want to see absolutely amazing side-by-side racing, they were especially interesting to watch, especially Joop de Vos and Ryan Woodrow.
Let's take a look at the race results before we send it off to the studio. It's Luciano Whitvet, your winner, ahead of David Bozka and Nikolai Pedersen. Bozka, I think, had the drive of the race, especially with the pit strategy. Balzas Erdely is in 4th, also your fastest lap. So he earns an extra 3 points. Igor Kos, Joop de Vos, Sitzel will be in 6th. 7th, Ryan Woodrow, the American. Caden Richardson finishes off in 8th place. Cody Cosford and Kyle Domark round out your top 10. You take a look at 11th on back. It's Cody Cosford. It's well, we'll get the rest of the field here shortly, but really, there we go. It's Gregory Hofson, Mihai Neg, and Alexander Pollock, 13th. 14th, Andrea Pagnini in the Porsche. Federico Alberti and Danny Neo round out your lead lap racers. And what could have been for Conrad Kula with a little bit of contact ended up in last on the field, but able to finish 2 laps down. Alexa, let's give your final thoughts on this race.
domination from Lucanio with the whip. No, I am going to say that. Absolutely amazing drive by him tonight. Amazing midfield fights like we saw, and of course you had those unfortunate drive-throughs for a few of those drivers. Of course, the unraveling towards the end as well for Danny Neo. They're going to want to go again. They're going to want to go again next time around. But for a first race of the season, especially at Silverstone, I would say it's the best it could have been.